Indiana Jones. It's a podcast about Indiana Jones. Every movie, 1 minute at a time. Indiana Jones Minute.
Welcome back to the Indiana Jones Minute, the podcast in which we celebrate and discuss the film Raiders of the Lost Ark 1 minute at a time. I'm Tom Taylor.
I'm Pete Mummert.
I'm Jerry Porter.
Okay, I'm Evan Jacover. I did it.
I'm Ryan DiGiorgi.
Welcome. We're excited about you too, Ryan, but God, Evan, you nailed that. That was sweet.
Yeah.
Evan won this one.
Bit of a hiatus there between names, but
hey, that counts. That's fine.
Yeah.
You can lengthen that in post.
I think I will. Yeah, I was just considering that. Just really build up the suspense. Speaking of suspense, what's going to happen now that all these ghosties are floating around? Let's find out, because in minute 108, we've got Belloq expressing his opinion of these ghosts. And this minute ends with fire rushing across the nearly empty altar.
Well, last week we kind of played with the idea that maybe Belloq is a secret good guy, like he's actually here to get rid of the Nazis. And I think this is a good minute to show that maybe that might be true, because he looks upon the work of Yahweh and he just goes, beautiful.
Yeah.
And then Toad kind of makes the face and is like, it's like he mumbles to himself, beautiful.
I love that. That's one of my favorite parts of the movie. He's like, really? Beautiful?
I don't know. Yeah, beautiful.
I've seen hotter ghosts.
They're looking at a Jackson Pollock painting. Look, it's genius. It's genius.
A movie starring Toad called I've Seen Hotter Ghosts would be the best movie of all time.
Yeah.
I do like when, he says, it's beautiful, and the ghost is freaking out. And then Toad, the look of beautiful, also is sort of the look of like, wait, this doesn't seem good. Like, just this got something is wrong here, which is a great, it's a great shortcut to then just immediately cut to like evil version of the scene.
Right. That's true. I never thought of that.
It's a classic famous last words. I mean, how many times do you think you've heard, that it's beautiful's been said, and then that's the last thing somebody says?
Yeah.
Well, we did it. Well, that was close. We get this shot right after Toad starts screaming his head off like a crazy person. We get this shot of Belloq and Dietrich and Toad behind the ark as the flames are coming up to engulf Belloq, and they all seem really weirdly posed. Like, it almost looks like they're posing for a still or something, because Dietrich is like standing there like with his hand sort of to his throat a little bit.
He's doing like the
not
Darth
really
Vader
moving.
force choke thing.
Yeah. He was being frightened by Vader's sorcerer's words.
This is another great example of these two actors thought something else was happening in this.
Yeah.
It didn't get animated, but it's still kind of like you wouldn't notice it if you weren't watching this movie minute by minute, probably. But it's like, wait, what are they doing?
Yeah.
Because Toad's got his shoulders all hunched up. He's like kind of in the middle of a laugh or something.
Right.
Or like a Frankenstein kind of thing.
The thing is, Belloq screwed it up more than anyone, but they're like, well, we got to put this fire in front of someone's face, and Belloq did the worst job, so we'll cover him up.
Yeah, we'll fix him in post with the power of God.
Well, you know what I love here is the wrath of God is so perfectly biblical. There's a ball of fire floating above the ark, and then Yahweh uses Belloq's face as lighter fuel, and then we see a smiting.
And Belloq is the instrument through which God smites the Nazis.
Yeah.
Like it's his eyes that are the laser beams that kills the Nazis.
The chain reaction of like through the chest from Nazi to Nazi is just really satisfying.
Yeah.
You could throw that
like, if
into your
there's one
Star Wars, it's very Emperor Palpatine.
Well, it's like if there's one thing you know about Yahweh in the Old Testament, it's meddling ass hoes get smote.
Yep. It's true. Jared loves saying meddling ass hoes, by the way. I don't know if you picked
and smote.
And
smote. Yeah. Well, that's that because as we're on minute 108, I'm like, that's what so much of this movie is about. And it's a lot of what the Bible's about, meddling ass hoes.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Not
think
doing what
about
they're supposed to.
Yeah, because and this whole thing, this whole Ark of the Covenant thing, is a lot like the story of Adam and Eve. Yeah. It's like, here's the one thing, you can have all this other stuff, just don't touch it.
Yeah.
Right.
Anything
you know, just
look at it.
Yeah, just don't look at it. It's like and it's the one and everybody, like, no one can do that.
Yeah.
And the irony is, of course, they've been studying this stuff for their entire lives. You'd think someone would know better, especially by minute 108.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they haven't really seen anything. Like, no one's gotten, no one's been gotten yet by the Ark. So,
well, I mean, the whole, like we talked about the Yahweh Singe highlighter, and it only burns off what you put on. And then how about just studying the Bible? It's like we even made a verb out of Uzzah.
Well, that's all on Belloq. It's not like Dietrich and Toad are like studying up with him or anything, or
right.
A little Bible study class or something.
It is.
Oh, sure, but I mean,
his lead.
It is weird though that like the figure, the head, the piece of the staff of Ra or whatever that has most of this information on it. Like in the scene we talked about last time that was cut. Like, isn't it the figure, like the top piece that says "Don't look at it"?
It's on the headpiece. It's on the other side of the headpiece of the staff of Ra. It says, right.
Which is also, I love that, like, we have this headpiece and one side of it is all red herring information and the other side of it is all like the important information.
It's like diffusing a bomb.
Right.
Cut the blue wire, but first cut the red wire.
But they've had this, Marion's dad had that figurehead thing forever. You'd think that at some point he'd be like, I should disseminate this information. Like, if you come across this, please do not look into the Ark.
Yeah, stick with your buddy. Don't look at the Ark. Make sure you have a lot of water. All the basics.
Well, I mean, all the people who actually know what to do are complete non-factors in the movie. We got Doug Henning, who tells them, who warns them. You got Marcus, who's got 2 minutes of time, and I guess to a lesser extent Sala. But these are all the people who, are warning everybody not to don't touch the apple.
Yeah. Let me see the Ark.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's funny that Indy goes through the whole movie saying he won't. Like, of course he's going to touch the apple. Of course he's going to look at the Ark, and he's the one guy that doesn't.
Right. He figures
I wonder
it out.
if Indy had gotten the Ark himself, he's like about to open it. And he's like, wait a minute. You know what? I shouldn't look at this. It's like he just has that epiphany right at the last minute. I gotta go.
Well, that's what he's saying. I think Yahweh kind of bros him down a little bit.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah,
I like to.
Because
Go ahead.
Well, he just for the rest of the movie he doesn't really act that way at all.
Yeah,
right.
It's like one of those, like I said, one of those St. Paul epiphanies or something.
Mm-hmm.
I like to think he would have, like, Indy would have done the same thing with the sand, been like, well, whatever. But then before the ghost came, he would have had his epiphany and leapt out of the way or something.
Yeah.
Put the lid on really quick.
Yeah. Nothing.
Like it's a hot pot. Oh.
Well, and just all these guys are meddling the whole time with basically what they're not supposed to be meddling with. Yeah. That's it.
And I don't know if anyone picked up on this, but 3 guys melt and their heads explode in this scene.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
Actually, I always thought Dietrich and Tote both melted, but Dietrich shrinks.
Oh, thank you for saying that. That was one of my big notes. Does Dietrich actually melt?
No, he shrinks. I was
does.
wondering, like, each guy does a different thing, and I wonder if it's like one of those ironic kind of gift of the Magi kind of things. Like,
Jesus
each guy
Christ,
has a
you're reading my notes. You're reading my notes right off my screen. I said it's like a fairy tale Twilight Zone comeuppance thing. Dietrich sucks. Tote finally melts to death. He's finally hot enough to melt. And Belloq's got a big head and it explodes.
That's perfect. I like that this 1 minute contains 3 of the best deaths on cinema history.
It seriously does.
One after
4
another.
if you count the camera guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, see, now I wondered, does the camera, like, why does that guy, he gets it in the chest, the hands,
and
the eyes, and I thought to myself, Well, maybe he was the only one who wasn't circumcised.
Guys, maybe that's one of the guys who lifted the lid off. So he's getting into the
yeah.
hands, too.
Yeah, he gets there. I thought, well, maybe like was he stealing like Girl Scout cookies or something?
Probably. He's a Nazi.
Like he got a little extra.
Right.
I like the people behind him are just like, let's see how this pans out. Like they're not really reacting yet.
Yeah. I might use it up on him, and then we're good.
But
the business with Dietrich and Belloq, I always just thought was like an atmospheric pressure thing.
Oh, weird.
Yeah.
Because Dietrich, he kind of implodes.
Yeah.
As you said, and then Belloq explodes.
In some ways, Dietrich is the grossest of the three. I don't know if I totally would say that, but in a way he is, because it's so weird. Like, he does just sort of like shrivel and shrink up and stuff. And he was easy to imitate when you were a kid. You just like suck your cheeks in and be like, oh, Dietrich. Get me, I'm a melting Nazi.
He hands down has the most disgusting noise when his cheeks come.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a frying coconut.
What's awesome about this is, as soon as this came out on video, this one of the first notes I had when we started doing this is to find out when this first came out on VHS, but I have no idea when it was. Anyway, the first thing you would do is speed right to this scene, and you'd want to get Tote to do him in slow motion, like frame by frame, which is awesome, even then on VHS. But like the way these shots are set up, it's like Tote screams, Dietrich is freaking out, Tote screams, Belloq is freaking out, and then it cuts to fake head of Dietrich getting freaked out. Like does the same series of shots, but like as special effects until Belloq's head explodes.
I like to imagine that the ILM guys were like, okay, we think we have this like head melting thing down. And they do Dietrich and they're like, yeah, that's okay. And they're like, okay, wait, we can do a little better. And then they did Tote and they were like, well, we can't do better than that. And they're like, just make the last guy's head explode. Like, we don't care.
Blow him up. Blow him back to God.
I always thought this was like kind of the early days of ILM, and they're just like, let's see, like, what should be our signature, how do we show ourselves to the world? Like, we could do a melting face. It's like their business card.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Why pick one? Do them all.
Well, which one would be the most painful? I think Dietrich's.
Oh, God, I don't even know.
No, I think Tote.
No,
Dietrich looks quick.
Watching it happen. Tote's kind of like his eyes are kind of turned down when he like sees his.
I think he's alive till the very end too.
Right.
But it's kind of a non-factor once your nerves melt.
Maybe. I mean, I guess so, but I don't know.
Maybe it hurts
when
less
Dietrich's
if your nerves get small.
When Dietrich's eyes roll back into his head, it's sort of like, okay, he's probably not feeling anything anymore. He's like gone. But I feel like Tote feels it all, like Evan said.
Well, his eyes roll up too. But
you're right.
It's also like gurgling and screaming.
Right.
And stuff. Oh, it turns into a gurgle. That's so fucking gross. That's really disturbing. Somehow not the most effective thing, but somehow a huge element of Tote is the way his whole body just sort of like drifts to the side a little bit as he's melting. Somehow that slow motion just like adds something to like, oh, something horrifying's happening. And his glasses slip down his face and everything. Oh, it's just sick.
Losing the glasses is really what does it for me. Just like slowly, impotently sliding off his melting face.
Yeah.
And then his hat kind of starts to fall down because his face isn't big enough anymore, so his hat starts to fall down.
Oh, my God. I remember my reaction. I've told this story before on here. My cousin took me to see this. I wanted to see Superman 2, but he took me to see this, and I was so excited once I realized what was going on. And this scene came, and just, we're in the theater. It's bellowingly loud, and I just yelled at the top of my lungs, "Oh my God!" And my cousin's like, "Shut up!" I could not handle that a guy was melting in front of me. Blew my mind.
When I saw this the first time, it was in the theater, but I don't think it was the initial release. And I remember my mom covered my eyes for this part, and I never knew what happened until probably it came out I saw it on video.
Oh, wow.
Years later.
Like, thanks, Mom.
It's just like, well, I guess they just put it in a box in that scene. That was just the boxing.
Yeah. What was all that yelling, Mom? Did someone nail their hand by accident?
Yeah. The hammer hit their thumb.
The thing, before they each have their sort of signature demise, one of the creepiest things is, Tom, as you said, they're just like they're screaming.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you wonder, you're like, that it seems like some pressure issue.
Well, definitely.
It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, and it's just, I don't know. You're like, well, what is it that's happening to them? And it's really creepy.
That's why I wonder if
wins
Belloq was the most
the
painful,
Scream
maybe.
Face Award. That's the best Scream Face in the history of movies.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Dietrich, yeah.
Oh yeah, Dietrich is
He's freaking out.
And I wish you could see Belloq's explosion, and this was a big deal because this was the whole reason the movie was going to get an R rating from the ratings board, and they made
I read that.
Spielberg put a fire over his face so he wouldn't see his head exploding. And I'm wondering how is that worse than the melting face or the shrink?
Yeah, and they referenced that when all the Temple of Doom stuff was going on, and they were getting like, you know, they had to invent PG-13 for Temple of Doom, and I remember people saying, we blew up a guy's head in the first one. Nobody was freaking out about that. But you know what? I think even then, reading that article leading up to like Temple of Doom or something, I don't know if I totally got that Belloq's head exploded for years and years and years.
Well,
I didn't when I first saw it. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what I thought happened. Like he's just screaming and then he's not. I don't know. But
well, I didn't get that his head exploded at all.
Yeah.
You're sitting there sucking your thumb because you just watched Tote melt.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. All of us, this scarred all of us.
yeah, it did.
Yeah.
I remember.
Not me. My mom covered my eyes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you were okay. You listened to the mom. You didn't look.
And it was one of those moments where you know that it's horrible and you're going to be freaked out, and somebody said like, well, don't watch it before you go to bed. You're going to have nightmares. But at the same time, you get really, really excited when the ghosts come out and you're like, oh my God, Toad's face. Have you seen Toad's face melt? Hey, you got to see that. You got Toad's face melt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. Oh, the thing about the you mentioned they had to add the flame to, like, you know, somehow make Belloq's exploding head less explodey or less upsetting. They did the exact same thing to David Lynch with Wild at Heart, where there's this shot at the spoilers for Wild at Heart, everybody. Willem Dafoe shoots his own head off, and they made him add like a bunch of smoke to that to like just kind of obscure it a little bit.
Huh, I didn't know that.
So yeah, so I guess the MPAA, they just say you know, some kind of smoke, some kind of sand, smoke, fire. Just put that filter on there and you'll be all right.
Do you think that the ratings board at the time ever imagined that there would be a future where the entire 10 minutes we've been talking, I've been scrolling back and forth over this guy's face melting to see it happen in reverse and forward as many times as possible?
I hope they know that now.
I know.
Retroactively.
Yeah.
It's all for naught.
They put the fire over the wrong guy.
Yeah.
No, seriously, they kind of did. But like,
Well, and also, you know, I feel like, I don't know, Belloq. I mean, do we all think that, I guess, Tote gets the worst? I mean, I know I said Dietrich is maybe the most painful, but Tote feels like the most evil guy in the movie.
Oh yeah.
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 Right. And I always thought, like, do we think Belloq, like, his ending isn't really commensurate with how bad a guy he is?
If I knew for sure the first time I saw it that his head exploded, I would have been like, oh, all right. That's good for him.
That's what he does with the art. That's bad. Like, he dresses up. He's like, look at me. I'm dressed up as I'm a priest. You know.
So wait, his entire life was fine up until that moment. Everything else was fine, and then they're like, can't.
That's what puts you from melt face to head explode.
Yeah.
What were you saying, Pete?
Oh, so were you asking if his death was too much or too little? When you asked
No, too much. Like, for some reason, I don't view Belloq as the main bad guy in the movie.
Really?
Yeah, I don't either, actually.
Well, I mean,
he's Indy's adversary, but like the Nazis seem worse. like Tote, yeah. I mean,
Jerry Porter, the Nazis seem worse.
Yeah, Toad is like the bad guy in the movie. He's just
guy.
set up as a bad guy. Yeah, he's you know, from the poker scene in Marion's bar to the whole thing.
Yeah.
Where Belloq has an understanding of Indy, and you even said that you almost feel bad for Belloq.
Of course.
here.
No, I actually, he's a jerk and he's a dick, but he's not evil.
But
I
so
don't
is
think he's
Indy.
evil.
I mean, there's not that much difference between Belloq and Indy, and it's interesting that Belloq explodes and Indy just kind of gets to ride this out.
Yeah.
I mean, Belloq was like willing to like take a woman as payment for a job. So that's, I mean, that's a little bad, let's say.
Pepe Le Pew, you gotta let that slide.
He's in a way you could say he's maybe more responsible because Tote's clearly insane.
Yeah.
And Belloq should know better, and he's commandeered the last 10 or 15 minutes of this, and you're kind of like, well, Belloq, what are you doing?
Right.
You seem like you had a better, you should know better.
Well, it's his big-headed hubris that pressure's building up in his cranium, and then it finally gives.
Yeah.
I did
gets bigger and bigger.
I did just stick an image in the chat if you're interested. There's a very brief glimpse of what the unobscured Belloq exploding head looked like.
Oh, get out of here. I'm going to look at that right now.
It's not video, but you get sort of an idea. It's not an incredibly convincing head, so maybe it was better to have it obscured, but looks cool.
I'm more of a scanners man myself when it comes to exploding heads, but all right.
That was clearly, was that rated X?
Well, scanners?
I think that scanners was R.
I think it was R, yeah.
Yeah.
It's Canadian, so it could be R. I don't know.
We'll put this picture up on Facebook.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
John Brugan, if we haven't done it yet, remind us.
There was I should have credited somebody put it on Twitter. I don't know. I just searched for it.
Hey, still.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the most incredible aspect of owning a VCR when you were a kid. Kids, back in the old days, nobody had streaming and DVD players and stuff. If you had a VCR in like 1982 or 3, you were a Rockefeller. And I apparently was a Rockefeller. And it had like the coolest feature on the whole thing, on the wired, by the way, remote control. It was connected to the VCR by wire, a very long wire, so you could sit on the couch and use it. It was the pause button and then the step forward and back button. So you could see Tote from beginning to end, every frame of his melting, one at a time, and it was incredibly awesome. He felt like a archaeologist. I don't know.
What's interesting about this minute 108 is that now this is on Beyond Ruckus.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what started as a playful rumpus at the beginning of the semester, quickly morphed into a ruckus, then a fray to a fracas. Yeah. And I feel like in this minute we're full-fledged, calamizaster.
Yeah.
Just like a disaster buckle, calamity, disaster.
Release the calamasaur.
Yeah. And it's just, it's like Totes now it's
emotions in the last 3 minutes from like,
right.
To.
It's just a no holds barred Yahweh rumpus calamazar.
Yeah. But okay, I do have to say one thing about this calamity. We've been, knocking the Nazis a lot. We've been very hard on the Nazis. Come on, guys.
Look, give them a chance.
Look, I will say one thing. German engineering, those tripods, those light tripods are standing up to this God onslaught as it's like sweeping everything away at the end of this minute. They are unfazed by the wrath of God. They're just doing fine. They're standing up and they'll stand for 1,000 years if they have to because they're very well built.
That's true. Just like the pole that Indian Marion are tied to.
Yeah. See?
God is very tidy, though. He just like cleans up
after himself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He really does.
Clean up my work.
Time for dinner.
It is cool to see the flamey wrath of God go like past but not affect Indian Marion. It's a cool effect.
Yeah. Now, when they're screaming, I just thought of this. Are they screaming because they're burning? Are they like feeling like that heat, or are they just freaking out because something insane is going on around?
I think they're just scared.
Okay.
Personally.
I
All right. I kind of think so too.
Well, I wondered because one of my notes was, did Tote's face melt because he's so close to the ball of fire?
Oh, just pure physics.
Or was it? That's what I said. And I know it's like, Dietrich and Belloq have this atmospheric pressure issue.
Yeah.
But like this, because it, and we're getting to the next minutes, but I mean, Indy and Marion are completely drenched in sweat. And I'm like, what you mentioned, is that because fire is surrounding them?
Yeah, maybe. It's
faces melt. Like, No matter how much fire. I don't think that's normal.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, you're not a doctor, Evan. I mean, come on.
Yeah, we need that disclaimer before you start making such bold statements.
Yeah.
I am, but I do internal
don't put
medicine. I don't know what phase.
Oh,
Oh, okay. Does a pancreas melt if it gets too hot? Can you tell us that much?
can you refer me to a specialist on face melting?
When when the fire kind of goes over all the dead soldiers and you see them lying there on the ground, supposedly one of these or more than one of these they used. They're all miniature soldiers lying there when the fire goes over them, and apparently a couple of them are Luke Skywalker action figures in his
Oh, that's
best
great.
fatigues,
Oh,
and they kind of painted them up a little bit to look like Nazis.
That's great.
that is incredible.
I saw there was an auction recently where someone was selling one of the action figures used in the filming. I'll put that on the Facebook page too.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, and that goes back to what Jamie Benning was saying about Luke's belt and Han's boots and Imperial officer hats, showing up in like the truck chase. It's all like little bits of Star Wars paraphernalia
Yeah.
throughout the whole movie. It's almost as if, nah, never mind. Well, God, are we done with the minute where everybody melts? This is big. This was huge.
Yeah.
I mean, we could talk about it for another hour, but
I will.
it's
Oh.
amazing.
It is
It's
amazing.
amazing.
It's the gooey cream center at the middle of this whole movie. It's the melty, chewy, disgusting glasses dripping down your face center of the movie.
The last thing I would say, I guess, is that like one of the coolest parts about this is that it's like every great action movie has like sort of a fake climax and then the real climax. Because like the movie could really have ended after the truck chase and been pretty fine.
Yeah,
Like on the submarine, they're making out, go to credits. It would work.
right.
But like, if you're watching this for the first time and you don't know what's going to happen, you're like, all right, I'm satisfied. And then this whole thing is after that. Like, no, guess what? It's pretty great.
Well, that's like when I first saw Star Wars. I remember the first time I saw Star Wars, I thought that when they escaped from the Death Star, that was the end of the movie. And then they had the whole Death Star assault to go through. I was like, oh my gosh, this thing's awesome. This Star Wars thing has legs. Listen, one thing that does not have legs is the future of this minute because it's done.
Oh.
Was that a rough transition? I'm sorry, everybody.
Like Fang shooting out. There was one other thing.
Oh, sorry.
The Fangs, yeah. Did anybody pick up on the little psycho moment when the Fangs shoot out?
When the who what?
Oh, yeah.
The Fangs,
The
yeah.
violin sting.
It's a little, it was like a total psycho.
Oh, yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Shoot. I was gonna. When you said that, I thought, oh, there are a few times when John Williams goes full Bernard Herrmann, and I couldn't think of what it was, and then I remembered, it's in goddamn Attack of the Clones. When Anakin's mom dies, it goes into like full Vertigo music for a second. And I'm not gonna. I'll cut that out. Never mind. Forget it. I don't want to bring it down. We had melting Nazis in this.
Yeah.
But listen, a couple of guys who are not melting Nazis, Ryan and Evan.
Oh, that's the nicest thing anyone's ever said about me.
Yeah, well, very nice guys. You deserve to have
It's true.
praise like that. Where can people find your doings? You've got a podcast, you got video games, you got my wife. I mean, what else? What?
You can go to hellofromthemagictavern.com for the podcast Evan and I produce. You can go to jackboxgames.com. Jackbox Party Pack 3 is coming out very soon. And you can go to meet your lovely wife, Jody, at any time that she is around.
Yeah, she's really nice, and she'll chat with you. She's very personable.
She is.
And she likes to talk to people. More than I do, and I do a podcast. Pete, speaking of podcasts, where can people find our podcast?
You can find us anywhere you find podcasts. You can find us on iTunes. You can find us Google Play. And you can find all of our episodes on our website, along with our new T-shirts at IndianaJonesMinute.com.
And please, while you're wearing your Indiana Jones Minute T-shirt, be sure to come back tomorrow for minute 109. Is that right? Oh my God. 109 of Raiders of the Lost Ark here on the Indiana Jones Minute.
It's beautiful.
It is?